Hey everyone, my name is Mike, and welcome to Crooked Commander, the show dedicated to showcasing some of the most interesting hidden gems of Commander deck building. The goal is not to showcase the quote-unquote best deck lists, but rather those that go off the beaten path to achieve something unique. For this episode, I'm going to talk about a deck of mine that hasn't seen too much play, and probably for good reason. The commander is Obosh the Prey Piercer. Obosh costs 3 generic and 2 hybrid red or black mana for a 3/5 Hellion Horror. He has the companion ability, which can be used if all of the cards in my deck had an odd mana value, but we aren't concerning ourselves with companion. He has another ability that says, if a source you control with an odd converted mana cost would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals double that damage instead. You're probably thinking, oh, what's he gonna do? Voltron? Maybe burn? That would be too predictable and done many times over. On this show, we're trying to find unique strategies. Nah, we're going Infect. This is Obosh the Compleated. There isn't too much of a backstory for this deck. At one point in the past, I decided I wanted to have a deck brewed for every 2-color combination. Rakdos ended up being one of the final 3 since nothing really stuck out to me as my style. As I was scrolling through the red-black commanders on EDHREC, hashtag not a sponsor, I eventually ended up on Obosh and thought to myself, I kinda wanna save burn for mono red though. I didn't, that's another red-black commander I made later. Then I thought, Infect could be really funny, but I doubt there are enough pieces in these colors to make it work, let alone needing to have an odd mana value to make use of Obosh's ability. Well, a little digging on MTG Gatherer proved that this was mostly correct, but still feasible with the right build. I've got an idea for another Infect strategy you may see in a future episode. Claimed by Phyrexia, Obosh the Compleated strives to double the damage of odd mana value creatures for an aggro Infect strategy unlike any other. Here's how I do it. The spells for this deck are split into 6 main categories: Ramp, Draw, Infect, Pump, Proliferate, and Alternate Win Conditions. Starting with the ramp section, I've included 10 pieces. We've got Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, Rakdos Signet, Jet Medallion, Ruby Medallion, Mind Stone, Star Compass, Talisman of Indulgence, and Thought Vessel. The 10th piece is Glistening Sphere. I'm not usually a big fan of 3 CMC mana rocks, especially ones that enter tapped, but this one lets me proliferate as it enters, and instead task for 3 mana once an opponent has 3 or more poison counters on them. Next up is Draw. There are 7 pieces in this section, and are common picks for these colors. I chose Faithless Looting, Night's Whisper, Phyrexian Arena, Read the Bones, and Thrill of Possibility. The other 2 have a bit more synergy with the general strategy, being Caress of Phyresis and Infectious Inquiry, which both have the added effect of giving my opponents poison counters. Now to get into the meat of the deck, the Infect section. As I mentioned, the pool of options I had was definitely on the shallow end of the glistening oil, but here's what I ended up with. Contagious Nim, Ichor Rats, Pestilent Soul Eater, Phyrexian Crusader, Phyrexian Digester, Razor Swine, Reaper of Sheoldred, Scourge Servant, Septic Rats, what? No, I'm not calling it that. This is a professional Fine. Skittles, the Blight Dragon, Sukata Assassin, Vector Asp, and Whispering Spectre. If you've noticed, I've only listed 13 cards so far, and of course that won't do. So I rounded out this section with 6 more cards that grant abilities like Infect or Toxic. Since these are not creatures and not dealing damage themselves, I don't need to worry about the odd mana value restriction. We've got Grafted Exoskeleton, Necrogen Communion, Phyresis, Prosthetic Injector, Snake Cult Initiate, and Tainted Strike. Now that we've established the Infect section, let's see what more we can do to pump up these creatures. There are almost as many cards in this section as there are in Infect, and I separated them into 3 subcategories: single target, multi-target, and multiplier. These may not be the lowest mana value options, but I felt it more important to focus mostly on options that provided trample. For the single target pump spells, I chose Antagonize, Barge In, Brute Force, Brute Strength, Hatred, Infuriate, Rush of Adrenaline, Siege Smash, and Stolen Vitality. For the multi-target spells, I chose Insult to Injury, Invigorated Rampage, Savage Beating, and Volatile Claws. The multipliers are higher mana value and typically more color intensive than the other cards in the deck, but these spells can potentially end the game quickly when they come in, depending on your board state and number of remaining opponents. They are Dictate of the Twin Gods, Fiendish Duo, Fiery Emancipation, Gratuitous Violence, and Uncivil Unrest. While I was building this deck, I realized that I didn't include any haste enablers, which feels a bit odd for an aggro strategy, but in my various playtests so far, it hasn't made much of any difference. However, a similar argument could be made for the multiplier cards I just listed, since Obosh already makes getting to 10 infect pretty easy. So I added a small sideboard of haste enablers if you feel those would be better includes. Since the lowest mana value of infect creatures is 3, I chose options that are permanents with mana value 2 or lower, so you can hopefully get one out before your creatures. They are Axeguard Cavalry, Bloodlust Inciter, Goblin Motivator, Sootstoke Kindler, and Trailblazing Historian. Next up is Proliferate. Sometimes you just need a little extra boost to distribute all those poison counters. I've got a few pieces of repeatable Proliferate in Contagion Clasp, Staff of Completion, and Sword of Truth and Justice. The others are single use while providing some other value. For these, I chose Drown in Ichor, Grim Affliction, Vat Emergence, Volt Charge, Vraska's Fall, and Whisper of the Dross. Now, I know that some of these sections may seem a bit too low for some players' liking and cause some inconsistency, so I decided to add in 2 alternative win condition cards if all else fails. Heartless Hidetsugu and Malignus. While they each do it a little differently, the intent of the cards is to deal damage equal to half a player's life total. With Obosh's ability and both of these having an odd mana value, that's someone eliminated in most scenarios. Just be careful with Hidetsugu, as that one hits all players, including yourself. You may end up king-making or causing the game to end in a draw. That just leaves our trusty land section. Starting with the Rakdos dual lands, we've got Black Cleave Cliffs, Blight Step / Seer Step Pathway, Blood Crypt, Bloodstained Mire, Dragon Skull Summit, Foreboding Ruins, Graven Cairns, Haunted Ridge, Luxury Suite, Mount Doom, Shadow Blood Ridge, Smoldering Marsh, Sulphurous Springs, and as always, Command Tower. I've included 2 utility lands in Inkmoth Nexus to get a recurring infect creature. Just note that lands have a mana value of 0, so it will never be boosted by Obosh's ability. Just a little bonus. I've also included Karn's Bastion for another piece of repeatable Proliferate. Taking a look at the color distribution, we are actually pretty even. So we'll round out the land base with 9 mountains and 9 swamps. Alright, and here we are with the full deck list. I did decide to go ahead and separate the Gives Infect and Multipliers from their larger sections, just to make things a bit more clear and cohesive. But for now, we're going to go ahead and load up the playtester, so we can see. Wow, that's all land. I don't think I want all land, yep. I think we're going to do the first mulligan of the series. Oh my god. That's tempting, but I don't think it's smart. Mulligan again. Alright, we'll make do with this. So I have to mulligan down to 1, so let's put Volatile Claws down there. We'll keep this. Alright, turn 1. Wait. Oh yeah, this haste sideboard. You can ignore that. I've actually never done the playtester with a sideboard before. Interesting. Alright, so, yeah, we're gonna go ahead, start with a swamp, and proceed to turn 2, draw a card. We will play this mountain, tap those 2 for Rakdos Signet. Proceed to turn 3. Cool. Place a command tower. Have access to 4 mana. Unfortunately, not really much we can do with it right now, but that is okay. We will proceed to turn 4, where we will most likely be getting our commander out a turn early. Dragon Skull Summit comes into play untapped because I do control a swamp or a mountain. And yeah, I don't think it would be smart to play the Talisman right now. Let's just go ahead and play Obosh. We haven't seen any infect pieces. This is strange for the deck. Alright, well, let's see how we do. Turn 5. More ramp. Alright. I didn't get a land drop. Decided to put... Yeah, I'm not going to put the ramp pieces in. I'm just going to drop the Uncivil Unrest. Yeah, and I guess for now we'll just swing. In a vacuum, this may be the quickest way to win. So because of Obosh's ability, he does have an odd converted mana cost, or mana value. It's easy to not make that mistake when you write a script. So he's going to deal double damage. So it's going to be 6 total damage, and that is 6 commander. I really hope that's not the way we have to win. Malignant. Okay. Okay. That's fun. Yeah, so we're gonna go ahead and tap all of this to play Malignus. You know, what did I just say in the video? These are here for when all else fails. You know, sometimes you just don't get your infect pieces, so you know what? Plan B. So he doesn't have... Actually. Yeah. So... He has Riot as he enters, so I will choose to have him enter with haste. So he can attack immediately. His power and toughness are equal to the highest life total among opponents I control. Among my opponents, rounded up. So that's currently a 17. That's a lot. Pretty big. Yeah, and then because he has haste, I can just go ahead and swing, and that will deal double damage with having the odd converted mana cost. For a, what was that, turn 5? No. Yes. No. We forgot to put the turn counter up. We had to have. So I didn't get a land drop. I know I got him out a turn early, but then the following turn I did the Uncivil Unrest. That would have been turn 5, and then this is turn 6. Yep. So we just forgot to adjust that. Not a big deal. But yeah, really wish I could have shown off some of the infect here. Poison counter, land, soul ring, okay. There's a grafted exoskeleton. Wow. One of these days I'm gonna get a really good one, trust me. But yeah, while it's not a feel for the plan A for what this deck is trying to do, I got to showcase plan B. And just how dirty the Malignus strategy can be. But yeah, thank you so much for checking this out, and I hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much for checking out this episode of Crooked Commander. If you like this type of content and want to see more, leave a like, or consider subscribing. Do you have your own unique commander deck list that you think deserves a spotlight? Leave a comment with a link to the deck list, and it might become the subject for a future video. Thank you all again, and happy deck building.